My name is Tom Clutter. I'm the youth director at Beautiful Savior Lutheran Church. I found out about Bridgetown from my wife Kim, who was taking students with Concordia University. First time Kim told me about Bridgetown and Night Strike and what they do, honestly my first thought was, how can I take teenagers there, because their parents will flip out if we're going to be walking around the city underneath bridges and things. It didn't sound like something that we could do. But after I saw it in action, I no longer cared. I found out about the transformation trip because they also did one of those as their fall service project with freshmen and sophomores. And that was my first exposure to it. And I hadn't thought anything about us doing one of those trips yet. Transformation trips with Bridgetown, they are a way to gain a better understanding. I think one misconception would be that you're playing homeless, and that's not it at all. In fact, when you're walking around with a trash bag, folks know that you are not a homeless person. What it is more than anything is that gaining of understanding, not just what it's like to be homeless, but what causes it. That there's a lot bigger story behind that you don't know anything about. What it feels like for people to walk past you and pretend you do not exist. That's the kind of understanding that I think you can gain from these trips. After our youth group did the transformation trip, one thing that was definitely different was students had a very real perspective on what it meant to have to kill an entire day and have nowhere to be, nothing to do, no food to eat. I remember one girl named Gabby who on this trip, they made cardboard signs and they decided that they were going to panhandle, or spange as Ben told us to call it. And they went to a food cart pod downtown and they made the cardboard signs and they did that. And I kind of walked around at a distance and just kind of watched to see what was happening. And the sorrow on Gabby's face, I'll never forget. And later on after the trip, I told her, you really kind of sold that. Like you were very believable as a homeless teenager. And what she said to me, I think, is what I remember more than anything else on the trip. She said, that wasn't acting. I wasn't selling anything. I was sitting there realizing what it was like for this to be life. So after we had started working with Night Strike for a few weeks, we were actually searching for a cause for our upcoming 30-hour famine, which we ended up merging with a transformation trip. And at Night Strike in January, we heard an announcement that Bridgetown was trying to raise $6,000 for the mobile medical unit. And that became that was Jesus talking to us. We've been trying to look around for what God was doing around us and join, and that was pretty loud and clear for us. So the biggest struggle in raising that chunk of money was that at first no one had any idea what Bridgetown was outside of our youth group. And so at first people were saying, you want me to write a check for what? And that's where having Tyler go up front and having people make announcements really came up big. So we were aiming to raise $6,000 for the mobile medical unit. Really wanted to just be able to say, hey, we bought this thing. And I was worried that we were going to get to that point. And then on the last turn-in day, we ended up at $9,300, or just a little bit over. I would encourage folks to take a look at Bridgetown. If for no other reason, I think that walls are coming down. I think that Bridgetown is uniting people rather than dividing them, whether it's over politics or whatever else. I think that when you walk into that room for the Night Strike orientation, you see people coming together rather than arguing. And I think that's a really, really amazing thing. If I had never heard of Bridgetown, if I had never been on the transformation trip, my life would definitely be different, because honestly, a year ago, I didn't have a heart for hurting people. That wasn't a big part of my DNA, and so as cool as it was that students were transformed, it's definitely transformed me as well. Thursday night is booked solid. When someone brings up Thursday night for anything else, that's not an option for me. It's blocked off every single week on my calendar, and I didn't see that coming a year ago.